Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the special council meeting on Monday, March the 17th, 2025. Happy St. Patrick's Day to those who are celebrating. Individuals interested in participating in today's meeting were eligible to register online using the delegation registration form at www.kitchener.ca/delegation or via email at delegation@kitchener.ca. Any written comments received prior to the commencement of today's meeting have been circulated to members of council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. The meeting live stream and archive videos are available at www.kitchener.ca/watchnow. Before we begin today's meeting, I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathering on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize our responsibility to serve as stewards for the land and honor the original caretakers who came before us. Our community is enriched by the enduring knowledge and deep-rooted traditions of the diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Kitchener today. Before we get into today's agenda, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge two dates of significance. The first is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which will be this Friday, March 21st, 2025. On Friday, Kitchener will join communities around the world in marking the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and as a community, we stand in solidarity with cities around the globe in our commitment to eradicate all forms of racism. This day serves as a powerful reminder of our shared commitment to combat all forms of racism within our community and beyond. As a city that celebrates and takes pride in its vibrant and diverse culture, with almost 1/3 of our residents identifying as Indigenous, Black, or racialized, we recognize the importance of fostering an inclusive environment where every individual is treated with dignity and respect, free from discrimination. We acknowledge that people in our community continue to face discrimination and work together to eliminate it. As a community, we have an abundance of opportunities to learn, share, and connect with each other, as well as reaffirm our collective responsibility to challenge and confront racism wherever it exists. Racial discrimination violates the fundamental principles of equality and human rights and undermines the fabric of our communities. It perpetuates division, inequality, and injustice, hindering the progress and prosperity of nations around the world. It is essential that we continue to foster an inclusive and equitable city that values and welcomes everyone. In recent years, the City of Kitchener has significantly expanded its efforts to combat racial discrimination through collaborations with community partners and a focus on education and resource development for both City Council and staff. In 2022, we launched the Racialized and Indigenous Supports for Equity, or RISE Fund, to support Black, Indigenous, and other racialized community-led programs and initiatives. Since its launch, the RISE Fund has awarded $396,789 in grants to Black, Indigenous, and other racialized community-led programs, projects, and events. Through its SDG Idea Factory, the city has invested in supporting underrepresented groups and equity-deserving entrepreneurs. This initiative offers resources such as innovative space, business coaching, and workshops to help entrepreneurs contribute to the achievement of all 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 10, Reducing Inequalities, and Goal 17, Partnerships for the Goals. Together, as a council and as staff, we remain committed to building a city that is not only diverse, but also inclusive, equitable, and free from discrimination. Together, let's strive to build a world where every individual is treated with dignity, respect, and equity, regardless of race or ethnicity. Today and every day, let's join our Kitchener community as we stand against racial discrimination. Colleagues, I'd also like to acknowledge that beginning on March 11th and through to March 25th, we've been marking the 5-year anniversary since the declaration of COVID-19 as a global pandemic. March 11th, as you know, is the global day in memory of those lost during COVID-19. Today is 5 years since the provincial emergency was declared, and March 25th will mark 5 years since the City of Kitchener joined local municipalities in declaring a state of emergency due to the COVID-19 global pandemic. The state of emergency provided flexibility at the time for the city to respond quickly to the pandemic, and that state of emergency ended 2 years later. I think as we all reflect back on those days, we'll recognize that, in particular, those first 2 years were tough. The story of our community was, in a way, one that saw its share of sorrow and fear. Residents lost loved ones, in some cases lost their livelihoods, and lost important connections to friends, family, and colleagues. We missed important milestones, stayed apart, and made public health measures part of our everyday lives. Over those initial 2 years in particular, we saw some of the best that our community's human spirit was capable of. As we moved forward, we recognized that we had a shared resilience and a renewed sense of hope and optimism ensued as we came out of the pandemic. It's something that collectively we've all worked on over the last 3 years, even though beyond those initial 2 years, COVID-19 still is something that exists in our communities and impacts residents, but we obviously have resources in place, including the vaccine, that have helped ensure people can navigate through it in a way that doesn't impact their lives in the same way. But throughout this whole time, and particularly in those initial 2 years, many essential service workers, first responders, healthcare heroes, and community volunteers helped all of us through COVID-19 with unwavering dignity and grace. And so on behalf of this council, I want to take this opportunity to once again thank everyone who was part of the community's COVID-19 response. I think as we reflected this morning, as we consider our community's response to a different kind of challenge, namely the challenge of an economic tariff war with the United States, that too is bringing its own challenges to the community, and once again requiring us all to come together as a community and support each other as we navigate through the challenges in the road before us. But what COVID taught us is that when we weather these challenges with hope, with humor and creativity, we, in fact, as a community, can demonstrate the resilience that's necessary to demonstrate care and compassion to each other, and to demonstrate that, in fact, we can be heroes for each other as we look through these challenges. So as we mark this 5th year anniversary, we want to reflect both on those who have been impacted, which is all of us, by COVID-19, but in particular those in our community, in our family and friend circles who lost their lives to COVID-19. And at this point, I'd like to invite everyone to stand for a moment of silence as we remember those who lost their lives during COVID. Okay, we'll now move on to the agenda. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? There being no delegations, we'll move right into staff reports. And we have one item, which is the City of Kitchener response to U.S. tariffs and trade. And it's a presentation that will be led by our CAO, Dan Chapman. So, Mr. Chapman, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, members of Council. On behalf of Task Force, update on the work of the Task Force today. Today marks day 14 of heightened, deliberate, and unprovoked economic tension between the United States and Canada. Over these past 2 weeks, and indeed over the past 2 months preceding them, an incredible amount of economic uncertainty and even angst has been created, the likes of which we've not experienced as a country in recent history. As a response to this uncertainty, on February the 10th, you unanimously adopted a resolution to initiate a response to these new economic realities. Based on the urgency of your resolution, a City of Kitchener Tariff and Trade Task Force was immediately assembled to facilitate timely action. I'm pleased to report that over the last 4 weeks, our task force has come together with a clear purpose, with a sense of urgency, and a strong resolve to ensure that Kitchener's interests, and by extension, Canada's interests, are protected now and in the coming days. Co-chaired by Mayor Verbanovic and myself, our task force has worked collaboratively in consultation with community partners, with businesses, and with internal subject matter experts to understand the tariff vulnerability of economic sectors within the City of Kitchener. We've also heeded national, provincial, and territorial calls for municipalities to step up and support Canadian efforts in weathering this economic crisis with a united front. Together, our work has been grounded in the principles that you'll note on the screen, which have informed the ultimate direction of our work. And I'm happy to now provide a high-level overview of the initial action plan. Our first proposed action is to amend Kitchener's procurement bylaw, which will be brought forward for your consideration in the next committee cycle. Municipalities across Canada are required to comply with a range of trade agreements which set minimum dollar thresholds for competitive procurement and therefore limit municipalities from exclusively buying Canadian. For purchases that fall below these thresholds, there is more flexibility to conduct targeted activities that prioritize Canadian purchases. And since our procurement bylaw was last reviewed, the prescribed trade agreement limits have changed. And by adjusting the limits within our own bylaw, we can increase our flexibility to prioritize Canadian procurement for higher value purchases. Second, thanks to the good work of our procurement team, the task force is pleased to report that 98% of the city's goods, services, and construction are already sourced from Ontario-based businesses where they are part of a formal procurement process. This is a significant accomplishment that not only limits our overall tariff exposure, but it also demonstrates our existing commitment to support our local and provincial economy. But there's still work to be done to limit tariff exposure. The city uses nearly 50 distributors that source product from the U.S. that is used in our municipal operations. And we're prioritizing dialogue with these distributors to highlight the importance that we are placing on Canadian preference and to explore opportunities for import substitution. Third, year over year, the city purchases a limited number of small dollar supply items that are used in municipal operations, some of which is supplied through the U.S. By shifting away from buying product from the U.S. where possible, we can symbolically support the actions of the federal and provincial government and support our local economy. In some cases, there may not be alternatives. However, staff will be encouraged to prioritize Canadian purchases wherever possible. Fourth, through the work of our task force, we want to assure our residents, businesses, and workers that the city is actively monitoring impacts to our local economy and engaging in meaningful conversations with tariff-impacted businesses. A comprehensive outreach plan has been developed and is being deployed to understand the challenges and opportunities that are facing these sectors. In collaboration with other area municipalities and the Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, work is underway to support local manufacturing and to create resources to support import substitution, again, for local businesses. And 5, earlier this afternoon, each of you participated in the kickoff of our Support Local campaign that will be undertaken in partnership with our BIAs in downtown Kitchener and Belmont Village and the local Chamber of Commerce. There are several initiatives within this program that will be rolled out in the Kitchener market in the coming weeks as well to help support shoppers make informed decisions about supporting local. Each of the 5 actions identified have been developed for immediate implementation. Work has commenced on all of them and will be well underway by April the 1st. As the current economic situation continues to unfold, Kitchener's Tariff and Trade Task Force will be active to respond quickly to changing circumstances. We'll continue to play our part to see Kitchener through this crisis. Staff leadership from our task force are present this afternoon to my left and also to my right, along with Mayor Verbanovic and Councillor Davey, who is serving on the task force. And with that, we're all pleased to receive any questions or comments that you have about our work to date. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. And we have several people in the queue. And we'll start with Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for this presentation. So, you know, we talk about retaliatory tariffs, and we talk about, you know, procurement practices, et cetera. And you did mention manufacturing. And I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more on what the city can do to promote local manufacturing. Because I think, you know, the more we can manufacture internally, the better chance we have of boosting our own local economy.
Okay.
Mr. Bloom?
Through the chair, we're already seeing local companies who currently source product out of the United States looking for Canadian options. So I think one of the fastest and most efficient things we can do is help support those connections to help them identify, whether it's local or within Ontario or Canada, alternatives to the suppliers that they use. So part of the work with Waterloo EDC is to help support change in that way, in hopes that local manufacturers may pick up new customers throughout Ontario or Canada through that kind of a mechanism.
And are we supporting the existing manufacturers in meaningful ways?
So through the chair, what I would suggest is for most local manufacturers, it's a period of uncertainty. We don't know, will these tariffs last forever? Where they change regularly. What we know is most are coming up with multiple scenarios in which they can respond either with their, between purchaser and supplier, or renegotiating contracts, or figuring out how they might handle the additional costs. Most are looking at multiple options. For us, what we're trying to do is understand their challenges, and as there are solutions available, that we are a conduit for them to make sure they have access to all of any programs that may come out federally, provincially, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think it reminds me of when COVID hit, right? And how the BIA and the city and, different levels of government all came with proposals on how to support people. So I think we've got to start thinking along those lines, especially when it comes to manufacturing.
Thanks, Councillor Chapman. And I think that's a good point. I think back at that time when we were, needing PPE, and I think of companies like Mitchell Plastics, for example, that normally does car parts locally, but they were helping make the stick for the swabs, as an example. And we had other local companies, get into the putting together masks and test kits and so on. And so I think there will be lots of opportunities for that kind of thing. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, first of all, I wanted to say thank you very much. Wow, has this team ever stepped up to the plate in a very quick way to get so many things done? Like the plan is really is very intentional and very thorough. So thank you so much for that. At our last Economic Development Advisory Council meeting, we had a very robust discussion with the businesses there who really want to help, really want to be informed, really want to, well, I guess, step up in any way that they can. How are we both getting information from our business community, and how are we communicating with them as well?
Mr. Bloom.
So through the chair, through a study that was done by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the estimate is that within Waterloo Region, so Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge, we have more than 1,000 companies that export to the U.S. So, and 92% of total exports from our region go to the U.S. So it is a significant impact. So, first and foremost, Mr. Bennett can elaborate, but him and his team are actively out engaging one-on-one with companies that we know are tariff exposed, and that will be an ongoing process as long as these challenges persist, because we feel, one-on-one we can learn directly the impact, and companies are more, it's easier for them to share the true impacts one-on-one. In addition to that, through the Small Business Center, we'll be looking to pull small businesses together and try to understand all of the impacts, both the U.S. tariffs as well as the retaliatory tariffs and what impacts they're having on small business. So again, as we said, we can either communicate back to this council the impact we're seeing, determine where there's advocacy opportunities, and I think more importantly, when there are support programs available, making sure that line of communication is there. So long-winded answer to say multiple areas that we hope to stay connected with both businesses as well as organizations like the BIAs and Chambers of Commerce who are also hearing similar feedback.
No, that's great. Is there a plan, a communications plan to share what we did today with our ActDev Advisory Council, with maybe through the small business centers as well?
So through the chair, on one note, the Economic Development Advisory Committee has agreed to keep this as an active item, the first item they want to discuss for at least the next 6 months, if not longer, which just shows their commitment and their desire to not just stay informed, but help bring information to this committee. Mr. Bennett's team has also created a webpage to provide supports, and both through the city and Waterloo EDC and the Small Business Center, I think we'll find multiple ways to make sure that that information gets communicated out through e-news blasts, through websites, et cetera, so that ideally nobody is left in the dark and they can find the resources that they need.
No, that's great. Mr. Mayor, can I just say a quick thank you to the team for including Belmont Village and our Belmont BIA in your endeavors here as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important to note how lucky we are to have able-bodied staff that are present today, and just a general team that's able to respond to something like this so quickly. And equally, how ridiculous is this that we have to, prioritize resources to deal with this coming out of the pandemic and dealing with high inflation where cost of goods and services had skyrocketed. Families across the nation were dealing with insecurity, and now unwarranted tariffs are only going to exacerbate that problem even further. And but I'm confident because we have the right people in our team that can continue on advocating on behalf of Kitchener. And so, speaking to the advocacy, I know that we are supporting buy local, support local, but we do have manufacturers that can provide goods and services to other municipalities as well. As we pivot to buy local and support local from a municipality standpoint, what kind of collaborative effort will we do that we can start highlighting to the other 404 municipalities in Ontario, the very least, and saying, hey, these are the companies here locally that you can buy from, source from, so that you're buying within Canada and within Ontario?
So through the chair, I think that's a provocative idea that I think the task force can look at and to see if there's opportunities. And my colleague in procurement may know of ways through, I imagine there are networks and associations that if there's an ability for us to provide who we are supplied by locally, if that can be shared, I'm sure that's an opportunity we can pursue.
Whenever I can do, I always provide provocative ideas, so I'm glad you see it as that. I'll just add a little bit of a qualifier to what I'm trying to say. When we look at the local companies, we can very quickly see all the things that we can buy locally. So in a municipality standpoint, from the basket of goods and services that typically municipalities buy, the same things that we're buying, guess what? Municipality A, Y, and Z is looking to buy the same things. So if you know those companies exist here, we should be sending that notification out to those cities and saying, hey, guess what? We're sourcing here locally. If you don't have those manufacturers or producers or service providers in your community, guess what? Come here. This is the list of companies. So that's what the task force, I hope, can take a look at. Thank you.
And if I can add to that, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that's really important is that we don't do work in isolation here, that we want to collaborate with associations, with business groups and others. And so our economic development officers across the region are working together with Waterloo EDC on this topic of import substitution. I think their first goal is to look within the region to say what are firms that may exist in Cambridge that can sell a product to Kitchener, or where Kitchener can sell into a township. But I think as we have a better picture for that, the next opportunity is to say, okay, here's the basket of goods that are available. How do we promote that domestically as well? And so I think that we're laying a good foundation for that work to happen.
Thanks, Councillor Singh. Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Dan, for the report, and to all the staff for working so diligently on this. And this kind of goes back to what I said earlier, of putting trust back into our residents and showing this kind of resounding effort, and showing our voters and our non-voters that we care, we get it, we're listening, and we do have a response. And I think that's really important in today's day and age, that, to show people we are listening. And, beyond supporting, the businesses and the companies, whether it's local or large manufacturing firms, are we interested in, or is the city interested in meeting with any of the local union leaders? Because, there are many members who work in, we have manufacturing members that supply to Ford and Toyota. Obviously, they're feeling probably some pinch right now, or pressure points. So if not, I would, we have CUPE, we have OPSU, we have Unifor, we have the Waterloo Regional Labor Council. I would hope that we reach out to them, and bring them along the process as well, and because their members, our members, my members are going to be affected at some point in time, and so is that something that the city could do, or at least explore?
And maybe I'll look to Shannon Weber to comment. She's leading a lot of our stakeholder relations and government relations work on this file, and so I think there's a good suggestion there that if we can align our advocacy with those organizations, we'll be more powerful. So Shannon may want to add to that.
Ms. Weber?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Deneau, for that suggestion, and I think that's a great suggestion for us to bring back to our task force as we broaden out the stakeholder outreach.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Deneau, for raising that, and I think it is one of the groups that would make sense for us to have some further dialogue with. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thank you. No question, but you did mention comment there as well. I just wanted to, I'd be remiss not to thank staff for the work that they've done here, and just being on the task force, just so council's aware, we see a very high level snapshot, as is our role here today, but there's a tremendous amount of work that's gone in behind the scenes with very little notice, and it's just another indication of the way that I think Canada's going to pull together in response to this economic and in fact sovereign threat. So I'm just very proud of our staff at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Schneider. Would help if I clicked you in. Go ahead.
Okay, that's okay. It's not lost on me that we here as council and our leadership team are all wearing the same shirts today. It's a united force wanting to do good, and as you said, we're so blessed to have capable staff who are leading the way on this and taking the wishes of council and the wishes of our citizens and putting it into action so well. I guess some of the unintended consequences of the leader of the United States is the renewed patriotism and belief in Canada and the desire to want to support one another. And I think there's some real opportunities here, some new opportunities for supporting Canadian companies, local companies, Ontario companies, companies from other provinces. I think this really has the potential to be a real positive, and it takes great leadership. So thank you for that.
Thanks very much, Councillor Schneider, and I think it is important to reflect on that, and we touched on that a little bit during the media event earlier today. But I think this truly has brought our community, our province, and our country together in ways we haven't seen in a long time. And sometimes it takes moments like this for people to truly reflect on the good things that we have in our country and focus on the things that actually bind us as opposed to the things that sometimes drive us apart. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that something as small but as significant as a win on a hockey game at a critical moment certainly went a long way in that regard, but it has also been very encouraging to see how different orders of government from, different political backgrounds have been able to come together with a single voice, and that single voice is something that certainly is resonating with both elected decision makers in the United States and the American people. Hopefully the U.S. administration will see that this is not a good thing, not just for us, but also for them. And hopefully, with the intervention of our elected leaders and business leaders, we'll see an end to this constant bantering back and forth around tariffs and so on. As I said some time ago, if there's a desire to have a meaningful dialogue around trade and trade agreements, then, as the federal government and as the provincial government have said, let's sit down as adults, put what the issues are on the table, and work through those issues as adults and move forward. So again, I too just want to once again thank Mr. Chapman and the staff team for all the great work that's been done on putting this together, including our team in OMC who have helped, particularly with today's events and a lot of our advocacy work. But it has been an effort across multiple departments, and this is just beginning, and we will continue as Team Kitchener always does to demonstrate what we're capable of and how well our organization works together. Councillor Stretch?
Yes, thank you. I too just wanted to add my thanks, but I also wanted to just remind the room of the high expectations that we of council have for you, and that connecting with our community and really showing leadership and how we're connecting with local businesses and different community members and residents. This is important work, and I think if it's done really well, will be very lasting. And so, I just wanted to, give thanks, but also acknowledge the seriousness and the weight that is on your shoulders, and I guess I just wanted to kind of commission you well to do good work and be thoughtful and holistic in your approaches. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Stretch. So with that, there is nobody else in the queue, and as Mr. Chapman has indicated, there will be a report with recommendations that will require a council decision coming at the April 1st council meeting. So with that, we'll move to item 5.1, which is to go in camera for the noted item. No, sorry, hold on. Thank you. Thanks for the refresher, Madam Clerk. So we'll deal with the recommendation coming out of the February 24th caucus meeting. Madam Clerk, if you can put that on the screen. Sorry? Okay. Do you want me to just read it out then? Or I can just read it out? Yes? Yeah, okay. That staff be directed to interpret the application of the rental housing development discount and deferral, sections 26.2, sub 1.1, and 26.1, sub 1 of the Development Charges Act as not applying to condominium developments and street fronting townhouse developments in accordance with the advice set out in Report Core 2025-086 at the discretion of the City Treasurer and City Solicitor. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Deneau. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Is Councillor Ioannidis on? No, he's not. Okay. Thank you. So motion to go in camera for the, motion to go in camera for the noted item, Councillor Chapman, and seconded by Councillor Owaduni. Any discussion? All those in favor and opposed? That is carried. Motion to recess, moved by Councillor Michaud, seconded by Councillor Schneider. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried. Thank you.